Well, Tampa, what did you really expect for this season? I don't know about you, but y'all smashed my expectations for you. Still not convinced? Let's take a look back at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 2023 season to find out. For the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I had decent expectations for them entering 2023, but I didn't expect them to make the playoffs. I expected them to be somewhere second or third in the division. I had high expectations for the Saints, high expectations for the Falcons, but they did sign quarterback Baker Mayfield to try and take him to the promised land, and I thought he would be a solid quarterback. I just thought he was a little too inconsistent to be a solid top-tier quarterback in this league, so I personally saw them as a 6-7 win team, give or take. How do they do compared to that? Well, they started off right. They opened the season 2-0 with a key win over the Vikings, taking a tough loss to the Eagles in Week 3, but jumping right back on the horse with a win over the Saints. At 3-1 at the start of October, the Buccaneers looked promising, but they had a tough schedule coming up to test them. Their next 4 games were against the Lions, Falcons, Bills, and the Texans, who were also overperforming at this point in the season. And in this 4-game stretch, they lost all 4. This was a season-defining stretch that in any other division would have cost them their playoff hopes. Especially the Texans loss. That was a heartbreaker, though. They lost by only 2 points. So a tough stretch that normally should have put them out of contention. But because this was the NFC South, they were still in it. And they ended up getting a win over the Titans before losing to the Niners and Colts. Still, once again, setting them back, but because it was the NFC South and that tank division of the NFC South, they were still well in the thick of it. Entering December, the Buccaneers sat at 4-7, still in the NFC South race as it was a tank division. So with their season on the line, how did they perform? Well, they actually played quite well. Baker Mayfield found his stride, the defense got going, and the team just felt right. They went 5-1 over the last 6 weeks of the season to clinch the NFC South, despite almost giving it to the Saints in Week 17 with that big, bad loss. Now I want to take a minute to talk about Baker Mayfield during this stretch. He had an absolutely incredible stretch here in these 6 games. He had a 63.4 completion percentage, throwing for 1,456 yards and 11 touchdowns to only 3 interceptions in this stretch. Baker was looking good, and the team was riding high, and they got the right to face the Philadelphia Eagles in the playoffs, who were limping in. So how did the game go against the Eagles? Well, the Buccaneers absolutely dominated the Eagles, winning by a landslide 32-9 to move on to face off against the Detroit Lions in the divisional round. Unfortunately, the Lions did get the better of them in the divisional round in a competitive game. 31-23 was the final score, but Baker Mayfield did kind of cost him, not saying that he was the only reason. There were a multitude of other factors, like the defense starting to give up chunk plays at the end of the game, but the 2 interceptions that he threw did not help matters. So where do the Buccaneers go from here? Well, I think they might have found their guy. In terms of extend, cut, or 1 more year that people tend to do with quarterbacks, I give Baker Mayfield a 1 more year. Definitely don't let him walk in free agency and try to sign him to a 1-year deal. Just a 1-year deal again, make sure he's your guy. I get that you're probably not going to be able to get him on a 1-year deal, so I would not be opposed to, for the right price, signing Baker to a 3 to 5 year deal, something, relatively short term, relatively easy to get out of if it does not work out, because I don't want to go all in on Baker just yet. But give me another season, and he gives another season like this statistically, and he very well could be your guy. In terms of defense, there are a lot of key free agents that they need to retain, but it will be tough. So I think the best path out of the woods for them is to keep their core and do a Rams-style retool. Kind of like the Rams did after their Super Bowl win. They struggled the next season, and they kept the key players. They kept Tyler Higbee, they kept Matthew Stafford, they kept some of the offensive linemen that were doing well, and they kept Aaron Donald and another couple of people on defense that were performing well. Keep the core together, but retool some of the areas that you're able to work with. If you're able to work with maybe swapping out a corner, swap out a corner. Get someone young and new in there and see how he can do. That's, I think, the best path out of the woods for this Buccaneers team. If they manage to do that successfully, then they will be fine and very competitive over the next few years. If not, then you might have 1 more year of competitiveness and then you fall off a cliff.